Welcome to Mother Daughter Projects. I'm Steph.
I'm Vicki.
And today we're going to make an easy to move DIY haul tree.
And this haul tree is a place for all of your stuff that you bring in from the car that you just need a place to put, like your backpacks, your shoes, purses, all that stuff.
We actually made this for my Nibblings house, and with the start of school, this is going to be a perfect addition to their house. Now we made it in 3 pieces so that we can easily take it apart, bring it down to them, and reassemble it at their house.
So come along with us as we show you how we did it.
The first step is to make the storage bench. We headed to Home Depot and bought 2 sheets of plywood and 6 select pine boards. All of this fits snugly in our Chrysler Pacifica van. We prepped the plywood for cutting by putting insulation foam underneath to protect our work tables from accidental damage from the saw blade. We rolled our Husky adjustable work tables outside to make the cuts. We're using the Craig Rip Cut jig with our Makita circular saw to cut the plywood. This is a great jig if you're making repetitive cuts that are 24 inches and under. All the cuts will be available in a printable PDF on our website at motherdaughterprojects.com. The last cuts were pretty small and our rip cut jig could not accommodate those, so we used our Makita track saw for those. With all the cuts made, we did a dry fit of the box. Everything looked good, so we moved on to placing pocket holes on the back and sides to join everything together. We tried to attach everything through the back so we didn't have to fill pocket holes. Pocket hole joinery is an easy and beginner-friendly way to join wood together. For the middle dividers, we're marking where they will be placed on the bottom and the back, and then we started to assemble. Mom glued the back, we clamped it in place, and I secured the pocket holes. Then we moved on to gluing and brad nailing the middle dividers. Then we glued the top in place and secured the pocket hole screws. Next, we flipped it on its back and glued and brad nailed the sides into place. This is a Rockler pocket hole clamp that helps keep the piece in place, and the clamps at the top are Rockler clamp-it clips, and they just slip over the top edges of the 3/4 inch plywood and holds it at the proper 90-degree angle. With the box completed, we moved on to making the face frame. We're using 1x2 select pine boards for this. We added 1 pocket hole to each of the crossbars and glued and screwed them into place. To make sure the middle pieces were aligned, we put them in place, flipped it over, and moved this to the floor to attach them. We glued and brad nailed the face frame into place. This gives the plywood a more finished look. With the bottom completed, we moved on to making the back panel. We wheeled our table outside and started by cutting the 4x8 sheet to 6 feet. Then I very carefully cut the 4-foot panel directly in half, which is at 24 inches, the max that the rip cut jig can accommodate. The top and sides of the board will show, so to cover the plywood edges, we're going to use iron-on edge banding and cut it to size. Again, to give it a more finished look. To cover the seam, we're going to make a decorative pattern with 1x3 select pine boards. We measured out the placement and glued and brad nailed everything into place. The middle 1x3 is only going to be glued to 1/2, as the other side will just slip under and be secured with wood on the back side. Here we're gluing and brad nailing it from the back so that the brad nail heads don't show. We'll be placing 4 hooks on this to hang various items and decided to add a couple of crossbars where the hooks will be placed. We glued and brad nailed them in the middle as the nails will be covered by the hook. Next, Mom spent some time painting everything. We wanted the wood grain to show a little bit, so Mom used a foam brush to thinly apply the paint, which she first thinned with Floetrol. We also had a little help from my oldest nephew. Once that was painted, I created countersink pilot holes for the back supports and secured them in place on the back. Each side of the plywood got 2 screws from the support. Then we flipped it on its front and put it in place on the bench. You can see the back is the same height as the bench. We clamped it in place, and then I screwed 4 screws into each piece of the plywood. Next, we cut a piece of foam to the size of the bench. Mom used an electric serrated knife to cut it. We found it best for Mom to cut from the back, and I directed the knife on the front for a nice straight cut. Off camera, Mom made a perfect fabric cover for the foam. Here she is hand stitching it closed as the fabric is not washable and doesn't have to be removed. To attach the 4 hooks to the back, I first drilled pilot holes, then screwed them into place. These are inexpensive single row hooks that we picked up at the Home Depot. We removed the back, and Mom had an idea to add circles over the screw holes to make it easier to identify the next time the back has to be put into place. Then we placed 6 anti-skid pads on the bottom of the unit to help it stay in place as it will be on tile floor. And here it is, all done. A perfect place to store shoes, purses, backpacks, and more. And here's how it goes together. First, I placed 2 anti-skid pads under the back panel to hold it at the same height as the base unit. Then I lined up the left panel with the left base edge. I started each screw into the back piece, then fully into the base unit. Then I placed the right panel right next to the left and secured it. Next, I placed the screws into the back supports. First, making the screw stick out so I could line it up with the hole in the back panel, then backed out the screw and then fully placed it into the back panels. I repeated this process for the 2 back supports. Then I placed rubber spacers to make sure the wood doesn't scratch the wall. And here's my middle nibbling checking it out in the space. He approves.
What we learned. Now you might be wondering why we used such a thick piece of wood to attach the back piece together. And that was actually to accommodate the specific space it's going to be in. So there's actually a light switch where that's going to be. And so we needed the back piece to be away from the wall enough to not touch the light switch. So if we were doing this for something that was just completely flat, we would have probably used just a metal plate to attach to the back of this, but because of the light switch, that's why we did it a little bit specific. And we also would have accommodated for the baseboard, but because again, the light switch issue, that's why we made it the way we did. But keep that in mind if you're making this, adjust it for your space.
We have 3 Husky adjustable tables in our workshop, and they come in handy for so many things, and we found another use for them. Now, we bought those 2 pieces of 3/4 inch plywood, and we did manage to get them in the van, and they are really, really heavy. And so we got back to my house, we were like, how are we gonna get these out of the car? So what we did was roll one of those tables up to the back of the van, lowered it to its lowest position, and just slid those pieces of plywood right out and rolled them right into the garage. It was like magic. It was amazing.
Now for the bottom, there is actually 3 little cubby holes, but we needed to figure out where to put the 2 dividers to divide it evenly into 3 spaces. It took us a little bit of time to figure this out, but I think we got it. So what we ended up doing was the measurement of the entire piece on the bottom is 46.5 inches, and we subtracted 1.5, which is the thickness of the two pieces of the two dividers together, and that equaled 45. So then we took 45 and divided that by 3, and we got 15. So what we ended up doing is making each of the 3 areas 15 inches. So we basically measured from one end to 15, and we placed the divider right on that, the beginning of the divider right on that, and then the rest of the thickness came after the 15. So here's a picture. Hopefully that explains it. We're not the best at math, but we're pretty sure they're pretty even. So,
but we did.
Perfect.
We did. We got there.
We did it.
Yes. We wanted the wood grain to show through in the finished look, so we painted this very thinly with some gray paint. Now, there were some places that didn't get painted, needed touch-up at the end, so I painted on the paint, and then I just kind of rubbed it out with a piece of flannel, hoping that would keep it from showing, and absolutely worked. You can see where I actually touched up.
Now you might be wondering the price of everything. So the price of the wood and the hooks that we paid for everything was just over $200. And then I was kind of curious, what would this cost if you bought it new? So I went to IKEA's website to see if they had anything similar, and they had something kind of similar, but it's smaller, and I'm not as great. That's all I have to say. And that was
$360.
I would say our version, DIY version, definitely was more cost efficient, and we got exactly what we wanted. And guess what? It's still kind of like a flat pack like IKEA, so it can be taken apart and easily moved. So win, win, win.
Win.
Yes.
Now, we haven't talked about this cushion, and this was kind of an afterthought. We just decided we would do it. And this is actually from materials that I already had on hand. The fabric is from my dining room chairs I had left over, and actually the piece of foam is a window seat foam that I had in my craft room, so I just made that in. I'm kind of proud of how that turned out, so just about to say that.
Yeah, it looks really good. The corners are perfection.
They are. They're like, it's like, oh, I did that.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
So if you want to see the measurements or any more detail about this project, you can find that on our website at mother-daughter-projects.com. And subscribe right here on YouTube, click that bell, and be alerted to all our new projects.